Welcome to my 187th video on my work with OO gauge. In this part I'll be covering a couple of updates that I've just been doing to my Hornby Dublo 3-rail tabletop railway. The main feature will be a metal girder bridge that I picked up and installed. Whilst I was at it, I also replaced the point at the left end of the table, since it seemed particularly prone to causing derailments and my attempts to fix it had not met with any success. I also modified the plastic tunnel a bit, since as it was, no matter how I placed it, something or other would hit the tunnel mouth. Oh, I also bought an LMS fire engine when I was up to British model trains on the weekend. So first the girder bridge, and here it is. These are one of the less commonly available Dublo accessories, and they can be a bit pricey, mostly going for more than I felt prepared to pay. This one definitely wasn't cheap, especially with the shipping to Canada. I bought it on eBay UK, but it was a bit more reasonably priced than they usually are, so I decided to go for it. I actually had to go back and forth with the vendor a bit in order to succeed in buying it, as initially eBay was telling me simultaneously that the item would ship to Canada and wouldn't ship to Canada. Literally, eBay messages issued from the same listing were saying the two opposite things. The vendor told me that they were struggling a bit with the revised eBay posting process. Eventually they deleted the original listing entirely and posted it again, with global shipping enabled, and I was then able to buy it. The shipping and import duties cost me as much as the price of the item, which is not that unusual. I was out $96 Canadian by the time I got this, but that's the cheapest option I've seen for one of these. And I thought it would be nice to have another characteristic Dublo accessory represented on the tabletop. Although the girder bridge was mentioned in Hornby material before the war, the accessory didn't actually become available until 1957. It was introduced to the catalogue that year at a price of 17 shillings and 11 pence. Here you can see a page from the catalogue showing the bridge as item 17 on the left, and also a separate advertisement on the right going into more detail about how splendid it was. As noted in the advertisement, the sides of the bridge and the piece over the top are made of die-cast metal. The base is a metal sheet. I'd seen these often in pictures and videos, and even on layouts at train shows, but when I unpacked it, I was still shocked by how large and heavy it was. And now there's a train going by outside. Is it a short passenger train? Or is it a goods train that's going to make noise for ages? Oh, I guess I'm going to have to pause. This metal version continued to be offered in Dublo catalogues up until 1962, by which time the price had risen to 19 shillings and sixpence. In 1963, this version was replaced by a version with plastic sides, at a reduced price of 11 shillings and ninepence. The sides are riveted to the sheet metal base, so there's no way you could just slip this underneath the track. To fit it with the track going over it, the track is going to have to be entirely lifted. My intention was just to put the girder bridge under a straight section of track somewhere. I wasn't intending to try to make an actual functioning bridge on the table. I decided that the best place for the girder bridge would be on the back straight at the left end, where the open wagons and brake van are in this picture. That area was where I had fitted the custom-cut quarter straight section when I was first assembling my track plan. The girder bridge takes a single full straight section. I decided that I would put the bridge under the straight next to the cut section, but I also decided that while I was at it I would swap the sections round so the full straight with the bridge would come directly after the curve, with the small cut section on the other side of it. Making changes to track once you've screwed everything down is of course much more difficult. To lift certain sections of track, it's going to be necessary to remove the screws from those sections, and also to remove the screws from sections on either side in order to be able to lift and disconnect track sections. You can see here that I've taken out quite a number of screws. those screws out, I first detached the curved section where it joined on the corner. With that curve detached, I was able to detach the straight beyond where I wanted to fit the bridge. Here is the bottom of the track that I lifted. The short cut straight is connected to the full straight next to it by a wire, since there was nothing on the end of the cut section to connect for centre rail continuity. So those sections couldn't readily be separated, but I didn't really need to separate them just to flip them round. However, I didn't want to place the straight section directly onto the bridge like this, as I was afraid that my soldered wire was likely to short to the metal base of the bridge, because that wire is connected to the centre rail, and of course the base of the bridge is going to be connected to the base. I cleaned these tracks whilst they were lifted. I was rather shocked to see how much dirt there was in them, since it isn't that long since I fitted them, and I thoroughly cleaned them then, and I've also wiped them down periodically since. Still, there was a lot of black tarnish on the rails. I guess it just forms during normal running, so cleaning is probably more essential with this 3-rail track than with modern nickel-silver track. I took the bridge and the joined straight sections to the bench. You can see here that if I just put the straight directly onto the metal base of the bridge, I would likely end up with the centre rail shorting out through the soldered join. To avoid that, I just put a piece of electrical tape over that whole area under the track. I wasn't too sure about the connecting tab on the other end either. So just to be on the safe side, I put a piece of electrical tape over that as well. The girder bridge is exactly the same length as a standard full straight, so the ends of the straight will come exactly at the ends of the bridge. There are little folded up tabs in the base of the bridge that hold the straight in the middle, although they don't actually grip it, they just prevent it from sliding side to side. Here's the other end of the bridge. There are just 2 sets of tabs for locating the track, 1 pair at each end of the bridge. I joined the straight sections back up to the back straight, flipped around so that the short cut section was on the right, joined with the straight. Then I slid the bridge under the full straight. Finally, I reinstalled the curve on the corner. It's quite fiddly getting the tracks joined up when you're trying to connect to sections that are partially fixed down. Actually, honestly, I find joining 3-rail track quite fiddly anyway. Some people say how easy it is. It always seems to me a little tricky to wiggle it around so you get both fish plates engaged and you get both joining tabs underneath. Then I started to put the screws back in. I tried to drive the screws in at a bit of an angle to get them to bite into the foam. Here's the end of the curve joining to the bridge with its screw reinserted. There aren't any holes in the base of the bridge, so the straight on the bridge didn't actually get screwed down. Here's the other end of the bridge with the fixing screws reinstalled. The short cut section is now at this end of the bridge, and that has 1 screw in it. And here's a train running through the bridge, the end too with open wagons and a brake. I suppose the bridge doesn't entirely make sense there, but I can live with it. I do think it's quite nice looking, even if it isn't entirely logical the way I've installed it. Here's a wider view across the whole table with the bridge installed. I was up to British Model Trains in Cambridge, Ontario on the weekend to pick up something else, and Nigel showed me this little LMS fire engine from Oxford, so I bought it and I placed it on the Dublo tabletop. Here it is sitting near the engine shed just in case something catches fire. I tried the Duchess of Atholl and the TPO coach through the bridge just to make sure that there weren't any problems with larger rolling stock moving through it the way I had it installed. Fortunately, there weren't any problems with the girder bridge. There were other problems, but I'll come to those in just a minute or two. Whilst I was mucking around with the track, I had another go at this point on the left end of the table. Rolling stock persistently derailed on this point. It wasn't as if everything derailed every time it got to the point, or it would have been gone long before this. Often locos, coaches and wagons went over the point fine, but too often things did derail on this point. And it was basically just this particular point. I didn't see any such persistent derailing tendency with any of my other points. I tried to fix this point, grinding some of the metal pieces, especially the piece at the frog, to try and make the passage of wheels over the point smoother, but I just didn't seem to be able to eliminate the derailments. So I decided to bite the bullet and just replace that point. It was an isolating right-hand point, and I now had a spare one of those, as I picked one up at the Woodstock train show and then received one in the post from the UK, and I only needed one of those two for the fourth track to the engine shed. I did check the spare right-hand isolating point with a wagon first to make sure that it didn't show the same tendency to make the wheels bump about as the bad point. It really didn't, so I decided to go ahead with a replacement. I removed the screws fixing the bad point and also those fixing all of the connecting track sections. With a bit of finagling, I managed to get the new point installed. I did, of course, put it through my standard track preparation process first, cleaning the rails with fine emery paper, then with electrical contact cleaner, and also cleaning the contacts and checking and adjusting the isolating mechanism. Here's the Wren Royal Scot converted to 3-rail going over the newly installed point with 2 coaches. This was kind of the acid test, as this Royal Scot was one loco that could never get over the old bad point without derailing. It did get over the new point multiple times without derailing, so now I can finally run that converted Wren Royal Scot on my inner loop section. The other problem that I was having was with the plastic tunnel that I put on the front left corner of the table. The brick portals at either end of the tunnel curved in a lot at the bottom and were actually raised a bit off the ground. This made it basically impossible to adjust the tunnel so that all rolling stock could get through it. Coaches tended to hit the portal on the inner side, as seen here. The TPO coach was the worst, since it had a contact sticking out on the inner side that would always hit the portal unless I put the tunnel well over towards the inside. But if I put the tunnel over toward the inside so that coaches could get through, larger locos such as the Duchesses couldn't get through as their buffers hit the portal on the outside. And now there's another train going by. My first thought was maybe just to cut off the ends of the portals at the bottom, where they curved right in, and that would have solved the problem. But it would have looked rather messy, as I would have had to cut off the bottom of the brick arch lining the portal. I slept on the issue, and I had another idea. I figured that if I heated up the plastic of the portal, I should be able to reform it to sit back better against the main tunnel itself, so providing greater clearance for the track. I put a leather gauntlet on my left hand and gripped the tunnel. Then I used a heat gun to heat the bottom of the portal until it softened. Then I quickly turned off the heat gun and reformed the bottom of the portal before it had time to get hard again. I did manage to burn my right thumb doing this, just from the residual heat in the plastic, but I really couldn't wear a glove on the hand that I was forming it with and still be able to work the plastic precisely. Here's the tunnel after my reworking. Not terribly different, but now there is enough room for the buffers of the Duchess to get through. And without moving the tunnel at all, there's also room for the TPO coach to get through. I guess the bottom of the brickwork does look a bit wiggly now, but I'd rather have wiggly brickwork in a tunnel that I can actually run my trains through. So that's it for this round of revisions. Now I'll just try to show you a bit of running with things after these changes. Okay, let me see if I can try to show you a bit of running video with things after my latest round of changes. There's the Girder bridge back there, and I've got the original Duchess of Atholl with the TPO coach up there. I'm just about to go through the Girder bridge. That's the point I replaced, which there's nothing to see about. It just still looks like a point, but hopefully it's a bit less likely to derail things now. There's the tunnel with its reformed portals. I did reform the portals on both ends to allow a bit more room. And then we're going to be coming around here. I did actually put a bag on the stand of the TPO, so with a bit of luck maybe I'll even try and pick that up, though I've only got two hands, so it's going to be a bit tricky, because I'm operating the camera with one hand and I'm operating the loco with the other, so I don't really have a spare hand to press the button. See, I need to press that little green button there to operate the TPO. I guess I'm going to have to do that with the same hand I'm operating the train with, if I'm going to persuade it to work. We'll see. The good news is that the Duchess of Atholl, I mean, it may still be a bit slow starting, but does seem to have improved a bit. You know, after I did my last round of servicing it, I said in my video on frustrations, one of my frustrations was I spent a morning servicing this Duchess of Atholl, my original Duchess of Atholl, again, and it seemed to actually run worse after the servicing than before. But after some running in, it has improved a bit. It's not great, I wouldn't say, but it's probably better than it was before the servicing now, so that's sort of good news. But it still takes quite a bit of power to get started, so let me see if I can get it started. Oh, that's not too bad. That's not bad. I mean, it's starting to move. It's only 45%. At one point, I had to give it full power to get it to move at all. I don't want it to move very fast here, because I want to make sure it's not going to hit. It's still pretty near to hitting the tunnel portal. Oops. Where's it gone? Now see, now it's slowing down again, though it's still a bit inconsistent. Started off quite well, then it's decided to slow down. Oh, and now it's speeding up again. Fairly inconsistent. Let's have a look at it as it goes through. Ooh, see, it only just clears the tunnel portal there, but it does clear it. But if I knock against the tunnel ever so slightly, it seems to really slow down at this end. We're getting big power drops at that end now. Maybe I have to get the meter out and measure the power drop at that end. Okay, maybe next time round I'll see if I can manage to operate. Woohoo! I'm coming down here, see if I can operate the... Oh, I think we got it. I think we got it. I don't know whether you could see on the video. I don't think I saw, but I think... Well, it's gone. Put it like that. Let me see if I can... This is obviously not the way to film the CPU. Oh yes, I saw that go. That went there. That through the whoops. Where are we? That through the bag that we picked up back into the bin. So there we go. And he is definitely, see, I mean, he's going a bit more smooth now. He's still slowing down a bit at that end, but what have I got the power on? Oh, it's quite high, the power actually at the moment still, but as he warms up, the power goes down, and he's definitely running better than he was right after the service, after giving him a bit of a running in. He's going around the back of the shed now. The shed's got its 4 tracks now. Maybe I'll be optimistic here, you know, I'm going to stop him back where he was back there. I'm going to change points, for which I'll have to put the handheld controller down. We'll change that point. That's the point for going to the inner circuit. We'll try and avoid tripping over the wire of the handheld controller as I go down. That's the point that I just installed the new point for. We'll check the points at the back. to make sure that we're going straight through there. My intention here is to try and bring the Royal Scot out of the station. Point, point, point. Okay. Let me see if I can bring the Royal Scot out of the station. He can be a bit balky starting as well. No, there he goes. But then he got stuck on the point. Let's see, I've only got two hands. It makes it... He struggles a bit to get over the points, you see. Okay, we'll stop him there a moment, because I need to change this point again, so when he gets back round here he won't hit it and derail. So if I left that point set to turn, he would hit it and surely derail. Okay, off we go again. Now this is the acid test. Will he get through that blasted point? I was going to say, will he get through that blasted point without derailing? He didn't derail, but he didn't get through at all. He got stuck. He does tend to get stuck on the points. He's a 3-rail conversion, not by me. I bought him already converted to 3-rail. And he's not the greatest. He doesn't pick up from the 3rd rail all that well, so he tends to get stuck on points. Give him a little bit more power. Nope, still can't get him through that point. I mean, he's not derailing at it, but he's getting stuck at it. Whoa, he is certainly... Oh, he actually maybe has derailed. That's bad news. I think his bogey has derailed. Not that that should stop him going. Not really. Well, so yes, he's a bit of a problematic runner. Can I get him to go through this damn point? No, I cannot seem to get him to go through this damn point. Oh well. Nope. I am not succeeding on getting him through the damn... I did get him to go through it, but I can't seem to now. No, he stops every time he gets to it. Turn him off a minute. See, now I think I may have moved the confounded. I'm just trying to clean the area around the point a bit in case there's a, you know, a little bit of not positive contact. I don't know. Oh dear, if it's not one thing, it's another. Okay, so it was maybe a bit optimistic expecting this to work. Although I did get it to work. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yes, we got through once. I suppose that's not much of a way to run a railroad, frankly, on the basis that you're so pleased that you managed to get a train to actually go through a point once without derailing, but still. Oh, and now he derailed. Derailed before he even got to the point, I think, in that case. I think he actually, I don't think he even derailed on the point. I think he derailed before he even got to the blithering point. Yeah, he's not what you'd call a reliable runner. I give in, I think. Oh, maybe one more time round. Very attractive engine, nice to see, but not a reliable runner. Okay, well, we got through the point one more time. The trick seems to be to slow down a bit on the curve coming into the point, because he's a bit prone to derailing on the curve, and then accelerate again as you go into the point to make sure you get through the point. Okay, so we'll set the point back to the station again, and we'll try and back the train into the station. You might think that'd be a trick. Oh, well, it is a bit, because he's got stuck on the point. Well, no, I thought he might be touching that wagon, but he isn't. He just got stuck. The loading gauge fell over and got enmeshed with him. Gosh, it's not one thing falling over and messing up, it's another. I have a loading gauge here, and For some reason it fell over and got enmeshed with the engine. Oh, and now I can't get him to move because he's sitting on a point. There we go. There we go. His coaches are back in the station. Maybe a hair further back. Famous last words. I can't really get him to go a hair. Oh well. He's okay, I guess. That's about, I mean, the station's barely long enough to fit those two coaches anyway, so that's probably about as good as you're going to get. Well, there you go. That's about as good as we've got in terms of running now, but, you know, it could be worse. He can sort of get over there occasionally, and most other things can get over that point all the time pretty much now, and I just hope I didn't nudge the, while I was trying to fix all that mess, I didn't nudge the tunnel again, because that'll stop that working. It's all a bit critical, but we do what we can.